Your sleeves feel loose against your wrists. You notice it 3 days into your mission. Your spine feels strange, unfamiliar, oddly loose. This has nothing to do with floating weightless through the module. A crewmate presses your back against the measurement wall. He calls out a number that stuns you. The number climbs higher than anything recorded since your teenage years. Your uniform hangs differently across your torso now. Every astronaut who spends months aboard the International Space Station comes home up to 5 centimeters taller than when they left, and almost every one of them is in constant pain. Nobody warned you about this before launch. Your body has started changing shape in ways no birthday ever produced. Gravity presses down on your spine every single moment of your life on Earth. It compresses fluid-filled discs stacked between each vertebra. Standing, walking, sitting upright, every posture squeezes those discs slightly tighter. Fractions of a millimeter disappear off your height throughout each ordinary day. That compression never fully releases, not even during sleep. Gravity's pull persists even when your body rests flat. Astronauts on Earth measure slightly shorter each evening than each morning. Nobody notices this shrinking because it reverses itself overnight. The instant you cross into microgravity, that lifelong pressure vanishes entirely. It leaves your spine free for the first time since infancy. Fluid that gravity once squeezed downward now spreads evenly through your tissue. Your face even looks rounder within the first few days. Veins along your forehead and neck swell visibly under the shifted fluid. Crewmates joke about the change, calling it Puffy face syndrome during video calls home. Doctors monitoring you from the ground track this fluid shift closely. They know it signals the beginning of much deeper changes throughout your body. Discs between your vertebrae begin absorbing fluid immediately. They swell outward without gravity's hand pressing them flat. Your spine stretches along its entire length. Each disc claims space it has been denied for decades. Within weeks, that stretching adds nearly 5 centimeters onto a body that stopped growing decades ago. Engineers designing your sleep station never accounted for a body changing size mid-mission. Your knees now bump the edge of a bunk that once fit perfectly. Ground control notices the discrepancy through your medical downlink data. They flag it immediately as a normal, expected physiological response. Nothing about this growth resembles a teenage growth spurt. Adult bones stop lengthening once growth plates fuse in early adulthood. That fusion seals your skeleton's height into what feels like a permanent structure. Every yearly physical exam confirmed that same number for decades. Removing gravity reveals that assumption was never entirely true. Your spine wasn't finished growing at all. It was simply held compressed by a force too constant to notice. Discs strained quietly against that pressure every single day. They waited for relief that never previously arrived. Microgravity finally provides that relief, and your spine expands into space denied since childhood. Standing at that measurement wall forces an unsettling realization. You never truly understood your own skeleton. Decades of assumed stability collapse inside a single measurement. Scott Kelly returned from a full year aboard the station, noticeably taller than his identical twin brother. Mark Kelly, his brother, stood beside him during post-flight medical exams on Earth. Researchers measured both men carefully, comparing spines shaped by the same genetics. One brother's spine had spent a year stretching freely without gravity's constant pull. The other brother's spine had spent that same year compressed under ordinary Earth conditions. That comparison offered scientists something rare, nearly perfect twin data confirming spaceflight's exact physical toll. NASA's twins study eventually revealed dozens of biological differences beyond simple height alone. Height, though, remained the most visually obvious, the most immediately startling difference between two identical men. Growth here brings no painless victory. Roughly 70% of astronauts experience back pain during their mission. Your lower back aches during sleep, a dull, persistent discomfort. Nerve pathways running alongside your spine suddenly stretch further than ever before. Some astronauts report sensations resembling sciatica. Sharp signals radiate down the legs as elongated discs press against nerve roots. Medical teams track these symptoms carefully throughout every long-duration mission. Painkillers become a regular part of your daily routine aboard the station. Sleep grows harder as your body searches for a position it no longer recognizes. Recent research points toward muscles surrounding the spine, not discs alone. Lumbar paraspinal muscles atrophy by nearly 19% within months of microgravity exposure. Muscles built across a lifetime to fight gravity forget their job within weeks. Nothing forces those muscles to contract or stabilize your spine anymore. Floating weightless removes the load they evolved specifically to resist. Your spine grows longer during this same period. It simultaneously loses the muscular support meant to hold that length steady. That combination creates a spine both taller and weaker at once. Your body has never previously experienced this exact mismatch. Earth never presented this scenario across millions of years of evolution. Gravity's pull remained constant and unbroken for every ancestor who ever lived. Your body's supporting architecture suddenly encounters an environment offering no force to resist. Every stabilizing muscle you rely on quietly begins wasting away beneath you. This weakening extends well beyond the spine itself, touching nearly every muscle group across your body. Calf muscles shrink noticeably within the first month of any long-duration mission. Astronauts describe their legs feeling thin, almost foreign, when they finally see them unclothed. Bone density drops alongside muscle mass, losing roughly 1 to 2% per month in the hips and spine. That loss mirrors decades of osteoporosis compressed into just a few months of spaceflight. Researchers compare returning astronauts to elderly patients recovering from long hospital stays. Both groups face weakened bones, atrophied muscles, and unfamiliar difficulty simply standing upright again. Recovery for astronauts, unlike elderly patients, follows an aggressive, closely monitored rehabilitation program starting the moment they land. NASA scientists initially assumed disc expansion alone explained astronauts' pain. Detailed MRI scans before and after missions revealed something more complicated. Discs return toward normal height quickly once astronauts land on Earth. They respond to gravity's renewed pressure within days after touchdown. Muscles recover far more slowly than discs do. Only about 2/3 of lost muscle mass returns weeks after landing. That gap between disc recovery and muscle recovery surprised researchers. It exposed astronauts to injury risk long after missions technically ended. Spinal discs respond primarily to fluid dynamics, swelling, and shrinking with pressure. Muscle tissue instead depends on sustained mechanical loading to rebuild strength. Gravity provides that loading constantly on Earth. Microgravity never offers it during spaceflight. This distinction reshaped how mission planners approach astronaut health entirely. That discovery drove new exercise regimens protecting muscles the body forgets it needs. Astronauts aboard the station train roughly 2 hours daily. They use resistance exercises targeting muscles most vulnerable to microgravity atrophy. Specialized equipment uses vacuum cylinders to simulate weight. It replaces the load gravity normally provides during ordinary movement. Core strengthening routines specifically target the lumbar paraspinal muscles. MRI research identified these muscles as the primary weak point. Astronauts now train differently before launch as well. Ground teams build baseline strength calibrated for the atrophy expected in orbit. Every adjustment traces back to one core realization. Spinal length and spinal support follow completely different recovery timelines once gravity disappears. Re-entry day brings its own brutal reckoning for a spine reshaped by months of weightlessness. Astronauts stepping off the capsule often struggle simply to stand without support from waiting medical staff. Their inner ear, adjusted to weightlessness, sends confused signals about balance and orientation. Legs that once carried full body weight now buckle slightly under gravity's sudden return. Support teams physically assist astronauts during those first wobbling steps back on solid ground. Cameras capture this moment publicly, showing visibly unsteady heroes leaning on strong, waiting hands. That footage rarely explains the invisible spinal changes driving the unsteadiness underneath. Within hours, gravity begins compressing that elongated spine back toward its familiar length. Most astronauts lose the extra height within the first day or two back on Earth. Consider the scale hidden inside this single physiological process. Human evolution spent millions of years shaping the spine around one constant force. Removing that force, even briefly, unlocks structural changes evolution never needed to prevent. Meanwhile, that same force continues shaping every spine currently walking Earth's surface right now. Billions of people experience this compression without ever noticing it. Their spines shorten by fractions of a millimeter throughout each day. None of them approach the dramatic shift experienced by astronauts. A force this quiet, this constant, rarely announces its own influence. Your spine holding you upright depends entirely on a force constant throughout your life. Its absence alone proved capable of reshaping your body within weeks. That realization carries weight far beyond curiosity about astronaut physiology. Every structure supporting the human body developed under gravity's unbroken influence. That influence stretches back across our entire evolutionary history. Removing it briefly reveals how deeply gravity's fingerprint runs through your body. Muscles, bones, and nerves all quietly assumed that pull would remain forever. The human body was built by billions of years of evolution under one constant, unbroken force. And the instant we remove that force, even our most fundamental structure, the spine holding us upright, reveals just how deeply we are shaped by the planet we evolved on. Growing taller in space isn't a superpower. It's a quiet reminder that leaving Earth means leaving behind the very forces that built the body we call our own. Future missions toward Mars will stretch this challenge across far longer timescales. Engineers researching artificial gravity point directly toward this physiological problem. Somewhere beyond every solved question about spinal elongation waits another hidden dependency: